The smell of paint and turpentine hung thick in my small bedroom, mingling with a faint echo of my mother's laughter. It was just past sunset, and the golden light streamed through the window, casting a warm glow on my latest canvas, a vibrant landscape I'd worked on for weeks. Each brushstroke was a piece of my heart, a reflection of the dreams I held tightly to, even as my world felt like it was unraveling. As I stepped back to admire my work, I heard the unmistakable sound of my stepmother, Karen, clattering down the hallway. My heart raced, and I quickly turned my back to the door, not wanting her to see my artistic sanctuary. Karen had a way of dismantling everything I loved, her sneering comments like daggers to my confidence. I could already feel the tension rising in the air, heavy with her impending disapproval. "Lily," she called out, her voice dripping with faux sweetness. "Dinner's ready. Come down now." I braced myself. The last time I had come down late, she had made a scene, accusing me of being self-centered and irresponsible. I took a deep breath and placed my paintbrush down, the vibrant colors on my palette reminding me of how alive I felt when I painted. But that feeling quickly faded as I opened my door and walked into the dimly lit hallway where the smell of burnt meat wafted from the kitchen. Finally, Karen snapped as I entered the dining room, her eyes narrowing as she surveyed me. "You think this is your art studio? You can't just ignore family meals because you're feeling creative." I forced a smile, trying to mask my irritation. "I just lost track of time." "Lost track of time? You're always losing track of time," she retorted, rolling her eyes. "Maybe if you spent less time painting and more time focusing on what really matters, like your grades, you wouldn't be in this mess." "Mom, it's not." "Don't you mom me," she cut in, her voice rising. "Your father is trying to support us, and you're just being selfish." I felt the heat creep up my cheeks. "I'm trying to do something I love. Why can't you support that?" "Support? You think this art nonsense is going to pay for college?" She scoffed, dismissing my dreams as if they were nothing more than a passing phase. "You need to grow up and face reality, Lily. This is not the time for childish games." I clenched my fists, willing myself to remain calm. "Painting isn't a game. It's what I want to do with my life." Karen's laugh was sharp and cruel. "And how far has that gotten you? You're just a teenager with a paintbrush and a big imagination." I wanted to shout back, to tell her how much my art meant to me and how it was my escape from the harsh reality of our home. But before I could respond, my father, Mark, entered the room. His face fell as he took in the scene. "What's going on?" he asked, concern etching his features. I could see the tension in his shoulders, the way he shifted his weight, ready to mediate. "Just discussing Lily's priorities," Karen said, her voice suddenly sweet again, as if nothing had happened. "She thinks her art is more important than her education." I could see my father's brow furrow, caught in the middle. "Lily, you know school is important," he said gently, as if trying to placate both of us. I looked at him, desperation creeping into my heart. "But, Dad, I'm trying to do something I love. Why can't you both see that?" "Because it's not practical." Karen interjected sharply. "You need to be realistic, Lily. You can't live in a fantasy world forever." I could feel my chest tightening, the familiar frustration building inside me. This was not the first time Karen had crushed my dreams, and it wouldn't be the last. "You wouldn't understand," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "You've never tried to create anything." "Enough," my father thundered, and the room fell silent. "We're not going to have this argument again. Just sit down and eat." I slumped into my chair, my heart heavy with disappointment. I stared at the plate in front of me, the overcooked pasta glistening with too much oil. I could feel the weight of Karen's gaze on me, a predator waiting for the right moment to strike. The meal passed in stilted silence, punctuated only by Karen's occasional snide remarks about my lack of ambition. I focused on pushing the pasta around my plate, trying to ignore the sting of her words. I felt trapped, like a bird with clipped wings, unable to soar to the heights my dreams promised. After dinner, I excused myself, needing to escape the suffocating atmosphere. I retreated to my room, the familiar comfort of my paintbrushes and canvases welcoming me back. I picked up my brush, but the colors felt dull under the weight of my frustration. My art had always been my refuge, but tonight, it felt tainted by the toxicity of my home life. Days turned into weeks, and the tension between Karen and me only escalated. Each day brought new battles over my art, my choices, and my future. It seemed like Karen had made it her mission to crush my spirit, belittling my dreams at every turn. Whenever my father was around, she would plaster on a smile, but as soon as we were alone, her true colors showed. One evening, I worked late into the night, determined to finish a piece for a local art competition. The soft sound of music played in the background, wrapping around me like a warm blanket. Just as I was adding the final touches, Karen burst through the door. "Why are you still up?" she demanded, hands on her hips. "Don't you have school tomorrow?" I glanced at the clock, past midnight, and sighed. "I'm almost done. I'll go to bed soon." "Soon isn't good enough," she snapped, her voice icy. "You need to prioritize your responsibilities over your stupid little art projects." "Stupid? This is important to me." I shot back, frustration bubbling to the surface. "Why can't you understand that?" Karen's eyes narrowed, and she stepped closer, invading my space. "Because it's not important. You're wasting your time on something that will never pay off. You need to be realistic." "Why do you always have to undermine me?" I said, my voice shaking with anger. "You don't know anything about what it's like to create something." She laughed, a harsh sound that echoed off the walls. "Oh, please. You think your little paintings are going to change the world? You're delusional." At that moment, something inside me snapped. "I'm done listening to you. I'm going to follow my dreams, with or without your support." "Good luck with that," she said, sarcasm dripping from her words. "You'll see how far your dreams take you when you're living in your car because you can't pay the bills." I felt the tears prick at the corners of my eyes, but I refused to give her the satisfaction of seeing me cry. I turned away, desperate to regain my composure, but her laughter followed me as I fled to the sanctuary of my art. In the following weeks, I poured my heart and soul into my work, using my art as an escape from the turmoil at home. I spent every spare moment at the community center, surrounded by people who believed in me and my talent. My mentor, Mrs. Jensen, saw something in my work that I had longed for someone to recognize. She encouraged me to enter a local art show, and for the first time, I felt a glimmer of hope. As the competition date approached, I threw myself into my preparations, creating a series of pieces that reflected my journey, the struggles, the heartache, and the resilience that had grown from it. Each stroke of my brush was a cathartic release, a way to channel my emotions into something beautiful. But as my excitement grew, so did Karen's disdain. She started to criticize my artwork, making biting comments about how amateurish it was and how I would be embarrassed if anyone saw it. I could see the way she spoke to my father, whispering in his ear, planting seeds of doubt about my talent. The night before the competition, I felt sick with anxiety. I couldn't sleep, tossing and turning as Karen's words replayed in my mind. I finally got up and returned to my studio, needing to lose myself in my art. As I painted, I poured every ounce of fear and determination into my canvas, creating something that felt like a piece of my soul. When morning finally arrived, I felt a mix of excitement and dread. My father promised to come, but I could tell Karen had convinced him to keep his expectations low. As I prepared to leave, I caught a glimpse of myself in the mirror. My heart raced with anticipation, and I reminded myself that I was worthy of this moment. As I stood in front of the community center, the sun shining down on me, I felt a wave of hope wash over me. I had worked hard, and this was my chance to show the world who I was. I took a deep breath and walked inside, where the walls were adorned with the work of local artists. When I spotted my painting, a surge of pride filled me. It was beautiful and raw, a true reflection of my journey. People gathered around my piece, admiring it and discussing their interpretations. I smiled, soaking in the validation I had yearned for. Just as I was beginning to feel hopeful, I turned to see Karen and my father walking in, their expressions unreadable. I felt a knot form in my stomach. I didn't want their opinions to overshadow this moment for me. Karen sauntered over, her gaze icy. "Let's see how this little experiment of yours holds up," she said, her tone mocking. "I'm sure it's just as embarrassing as I imagined." Before I could respond, my father stepped in. "Karen, just give her a chance," he said, his voice firm. "Let her enjoy this moment." Her eyes flickered with annoyance, and she shrugged. "Fine, but don't expect me to sugarcoat it if it's bad." As the event continued, I received compliments and praise for my work, and I felt a sense of liberation. My father's support bolstered my confidence, but Karen's presence loomed like a storm cloud, ready to rain on my parade at any moment. Finally, the time came for the award ceremony. My heart raced as they announced the winners, and I felt a rush of adrenaline as my name was called for the People's Choice Award. I could hardly believe it. I had achieved something significant despite the obstacles. But as I took the stage to accept my award, I noticed Karen's scowl. It was a moment that should have been celebratory, yet her disdain seeped into the atmosphere, casting a shadow over my triumph. I glanced at my father, who beamed with pride, and for a moment, I felt a flicker of hope that perhaps things could change between us. As I left the stage, I saw Karen's face twist in anger, and I knew this victory would only fuel the fire of her resentment. When I reached my father, I wanted to bask in the moment, but he pulled me into a tight hug, his warmth a comforting balm against the chill of Karen's negativity. "You did amazing, Lily. I'm so proud of you," he said, his voice filled with genuine admiration. "Thanks, Dad," I replied, my heart swelling with joy. But as I turned to look for Karen, I saw her storming out of the community center, her anger palpable. I felt a pang of disappointment, knowing that she wouldn't be able to see the value of my achievement. In the days that followed, I rode the high of my victory, but it didn't take long for reality to creep back in. Karen was insufferable, criticizing my art and belittling my ambitions more than ever. It was as if she couldn't stand to see me succeed, and her anger only fueled my determination to forge my own path. One evening, after a particularly brutal confrontation, I decided I had had enough. I packed a small bag, my heart racing with anticipation. It was time to leave. I would stay with Sarah, my friend who always believed in me and my dreams. As I made my way to the door, I felt a sense of freedom wash over me. I glanced back at the house that had become a prison and stepped into the night, ready to embrace a new beginning. The road ahead would be challenging, but I was determined to carve out a life for myself, one filled with art, independence, and a sense of purpose. Little did I know, this decision would change everything. The battle was far from over, and as I took my first steps toward a life beyond Karen's control, I could already feel the storm brewing on the horizon. Staying at Sarah's felt like stepping into a breath of fresh air after being suffocated by Karen's negativity. Sarah's home was bright and filled with warmth, a stark contrast to the coldness I had grown accustomed to. It had been a week since I packed my things and left, and every day I felt a little more liberated, a little more like myself. "Are you excited about the upcoming exhibition?" Sarah asked one afternoon as we lounged in her living room, surrounded by art supplies. I was sprawled on the floor, my sketchbook open, trying to work on a new piece while she was busy painting a mural on her bedroom wall. "Yeah," I replied, my pencil hovering over the page. "I can't believe I got selected. It feels unreal." "Of course you did. Your work is amazing. You deserve all the recognition you're getting," she said with a smile, her encouragement boosting my confidence. I grinned, the support from Sarah making my heart swell. "Thanks, that means a lot coming from you." As I continued to sketch, I thought back to the art show where I had won the People's Choice Award. The applause still echoed in my mind, a reminder that my passion could be appreciated. But a sense of unease crept in as I considered the inevitable confrontation with Karen. I knew that my victory wouldn't sit well with her, and I braced myself for the storm that was bound to come. "Hey, want to take a break and grab some ice cream?" Sarah suggested, snapping me out of my thoughts. "Absolutely," I replied, eager for a distraction. We made our way to the local ice cream shop, where the scent of waffle cones filled the air. As we sat outside on the sun drenched patio, I relished the moment. The joy of being away from home and indulging in a simple pleasure felt like a mini victory in itself. While we savored our ice cream, Sarah leaned forward, her expression serious. Lily, are you okay? I mean, really okay? I know leaving home was a big deal. I sighed, knowing that the weight of my situation was far from lifted. I thought leaving would solve everything, but it's hard not to think about how Karen is going to react when I see her again. I can't escape her completely. Have you thought about talking to your dad? Sarah asked, concern evident in her voice. I don't know if he'll listen. He always seems to side with her. I admit it, the bitterness in my tone betraying my hurt. Maybe he just needs time to understand your perspective. You've got to give him a chance, she encouraged. As we finished our ice cream, I realized Sarah was right. Maybe my father wasn't the enemy. Maybe I could still reach him, but it wouldn't be easy. It was hard to shake off the years of disappointment, the countless times I had tried to reach out, only to be pushed away. Later that evening, as I sat at Sarah's kitchen table working on my art, my phone buzzed. I picked it up, and my heart dropped when I saw a message from my father. Mark, Lily, can we talk? I'm worried about you. Let's meet tomorrow. My stomach churned at the thought. Could this be a turning point? I felt a mix of hope and anxiety. What if he had finally seen how Karen treated me? What if he still sided with her? I had to know, but the uncertainty gnawed at me. Everything okay? Sarah asked, noticing my change in demeanor. It's my dad. He wants to meet. I replied, my voice shaky. You should definitely go, she urged. This could be your chance to clear the air. Yeah, I guess you're right, I said, trying to convince myself. I didn't want to feel optimistic and get my hopes dashed again. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, thoughts racing. I thought about the past, the moments that had led me to this point, the fights with Karen, the way my father seemed to wilt under her demands, the feeling of being trapped in a life that didn't feel like my own. I thought about the artist I wanted to be and how far I had come in such a short time. The morning came too quickly, and as I prepared to meet my father, I felt a familiar anxiety creep in. I wore my favorite sweater, one that reminded me of my mother and the warmth of her support. I hoped it would give me the courage I needed. We agreed to meet at a small cafe near the community center, a place where we used to go together before everything changed. As I approached, I could see him sitting at a table outside, his hands wrapped around a steaming cup of coffee. His expression was solemn, and my heart sank a little. Hey, Dad, I said as I took a seat across from him. Hey, Lily, he replied, looking tired. I'm glad you came. I almost didn't, I admitted. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. I know things have been tense, especially since your mother passed. I can't say it's been easy for any of us. Easy? It's been hell, Dad, I said, my frustration bubbling to the surface. Karen doesn't care about me. She makes it clear every chance she gets. I know she can be difficult, he said, avoiding my gaze. But she's trying. It's complicated. She's had her own struggles, too. That's no excuse for how she treats me. I snapped, my voice rising. I need you to stand up for me, Dad. I need you to see what she's doing. He looked pained, and for a moment, I thought I saw a flicker of understanding in his eyes. I didn't realize it was that bad, Lily. I thought you just needed time to adjust. I thought you'd be okay. Okay? How can you think it's okay for her to belittle my dreams? I felt tears prick at the corners of my eyes, the frustration I had been holding back spilling over. I'm not a child anymore. I'm trying to carve out my future, and she keeps pushing me back down. I'm sorry, he said, finally meeting my gaze. I should have listened more. I thought I was doing the right thing by trying to keep the peace. Peace? This isn't peace, Dad. It's a nightmare, I said, my voice thick with emotion. You're choosing her over me, and it hurts. He leaned back, his expression heavy with contemplation. I didn't mean to make you feel that way. I want to support you. I don't know how to navigate this. I took a deep breath, my heart pounding in my chest. I'm scared, Dad. I feel like I'm fighting a battle alone, and I don't want to feel that way anymore. I want to pursue my art without feeling like I'm being pushed aside. He nodded slowly, and I could see the wheels turning in his mind. Maybe I need to talk to her. We can work together on this. I couldn't help but feel a glimmer of hope. You would do that? Yes, he replied, determination creeping into his voice. I want to understand, and I want you to be happy. You deserve to follow your dreams without interference. Thank you, I whispered, relief flooding over me. I really appreciate it. After our conversation, I felt lighter, as if a weight had been lifted from my shoulders. We parted ways, and I headed back to Sarah's, hopeful that maybe, just maybe, things were beginning to change. But just as I started to relax, my phone buzzed again. I checked the message, my heart sinking once more. Mark, we need to talk about some things. Can you come home tonight? The knot in my stomach tightened. I didn't want to return to that suffocating atmosphere, especially after feeling so hopeful. But if my father was finally ready to stand up for me, I had to trust that he would handle Karen. Later that evening, I stood outside my house, hesitating before I knocked on the door. The familiar dread washed over me, the memory of countless arguments flooding back. But I pushed through, determined to face whatever was waiting inside. As I entered, I found my father sitting at the dining table with Karen, who wore a tight smile that didn't reach her eyes. You're back, she said, her tone deceptively sweet. How lovely. Lily, sit down. We need to talk, my father said, his voice steady. I took a seat, trying to ignore the way Karen's gaze burned into me. What's going on? I spoke to your father about your art, Karen said, her smile widening. And he's convinced that you should take a break from it. You're not in a position to be an artist right now. I felt my heart drop. What? Why would you say that? Because it's time to focus on what really matters. Your education should be your priority, she insisted, her words like a slap in the face. Dad, we just talked about this, I pleaded, desperation creeping into my voice. You said you wanted to support me. Lily, my father said, his voice firm but calm. I think it's best for you to refocus your energy on your studies. You can pursue art later. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. You can't be serious. Listen to your father, Lily, Karen interjected. He's looking out for you. My world tilted on its axis. No, he's not. You're manipulating him again. Stop it, my father said, and for the first time, there was a hint of anger in his voice. This isn't just about you anymore. It's about what's best for our family. I'm not a part of this family if you keep siding with her. I shot back, tears stinging my eyes. Karen's smile vanished, replaced by a sneer. You're being unreasonable. This isn't about you needing to be coddled. I felt a surge of anger. You've never understood me. You've always seen me as a nuisance. I can't believe I thought you would change. Lily, please. My father started, but I couldn't listen anymore. I bolted from the table, my heart racing. I needed to escape, to breathe, to remember who I was without them suffocating me. I ran to my room, locking the door behind me. As I leaned against the door, my heart pounded in my chest, and I struggled to calm my breathing. The art show, the support from Sarah, the moments of hope, I felt them all slipping away. But as I stood there, tears streaming down my cheeks, I realized something. I had to fight back. I had come too far to let Karen push me back down. My art was my identity, my voice, and I couldn't let them take that away from me. In that moment of clarity, I began to plan. I would work on my art in secret, building a body of work that would showcase my talent. I would apply for scholarships and art programs without telling them, crafting my future without their interference. That night, I started sketching furiously, pouring all my anger and frustration into my work. I painted a fierce self-portrait, a representation of the battle raging inside me. As the hours passed, I felt the weight of despair lifting, replaced by determination. The next day, as I awoke to the soft light filtering through my window, I knew that I was ready. I would not let Karen or my father dictate my future any longer. I would forge my own path, no matter the cost. And when the time came for my next confrontation, I would be prepared. I was done being the silent victim. It was time to stand up and reclaim my life. The days turned into a blur of colors and emotions as I buried myself in my art, determined to create a body of work that would speak for me in ways my words could not. With Sarah's encouragement, I transformed her room into a makeshift studio, canvases lining the walls, splatters of paint dotting the floor like vibrant confetti celebrating my newfound freedom. Are you going to enter the spring art competition? Sarah asked one evening, her eyes sparkling with excitement as she mixed colors on her palette. I don't know, I replied, my hands stained with paint. I've been focusing on creating a series that reflects everything I've been through, but part of me is terrified to show it. You should enter. You've got to put yourself out there. This could be your chance to really shine, she urged, her enthusiasm infectious. Taking a deep breath, I looked at my latest work, a chaotic explosion of colors representing my struggles and triumphs. Okay, I will, I said, feeling the adrenaline rush through me. I need to be brave. This is my moment. In the weeks leading up to the competition, I poured every ounce of my being into my art. Each stroke of the brush felt like a form of therapy, a way to release the pent-up frustration and hurt that had accumulated over the years. I painted late into the night, losing track of time as I became immersed in the world I was creating. However, even in my bubble of creativity, I couldn't completely escape the looming presence of Karen. I heard snippets from Sarah about her concern for me, how she had been speaking with my father about my future. I steeled myself for the inevitable confrontation that was sure to come when I returned home after the competition. The day of the competition arrived, and I was a bundle of nerves and excitement. As I stood in front of my mirror, I adjusted my shirt, a simple black top paired with my favorite jeans. My heart raced as I recalled my father's earlier words of encouragement, a flicker of hope reigniting within me. Sarah and I arrived at the venue, a local community center bustling with artists and spectators. I scanned the room, taking in a variety of artworks on display, each piece a glimpse into the artist's soul. I felt a rush of camaraderie, knowing that each of us had poured our hearts into our creations. Look at all this talent, Sarah exclaimed, her eyes wide with wonder. You belong here, Lily. We walked around, admiring the different pieces, and I felt a mix of pride and apprehension. Finally, we reached my section, where my artwork was prominently displayed. My heart swelled at the sight of it, a testament to my resilience and determination. Just as I was about to soak in the moment, I heard a familiar voice cutting through the buzz of conversation. Lily, there you are. It was Karen, flanked by my father, who looked uneasy as he spotted me. Hi, Karen, I said, forcing a smile. She looked at my painting with a critical eye, her lips pursing as if she had bitten into something sour. Interesting choice of colors, she said, her voice laced with sarcasm. I can't believe you would showcase something so chaotic. My father's expression faltered, a flicker of discomfort crossing his face. Lily, this is really great, he said, trying to offer support. Thanks, Dad, I replied, appreciating his effort, but knowing it wouldn't be enough to counteract Karen's negativity. Just don't get your hopes up, sweetie, Karen continued, crossing her arms. Art is a tough world, and you need to be practical. I felt my temper flare. This is my passion, Karen. You have no idea how much this means to me. Passion doesn't pay the bills, she shot back, her words like daggers. Before I could respond, a crowd began to gather around my painting, pulling my attention away from Karen's venomous comments. I felt a rush of pride as people began to admire my work, their discussions echoing in my ears. Wow, this piece is so emotive, one woman remarked, her eyes sparkling with appreciation. You can really feel the struggle and triumph in it. I could hardly believe it. My heart soared as I listened to the compliments, my confidence blossoming. See, you're getting recognized, Sarah said, nudging my side with a grin. For the first time, I felt like I belonged in this space, surrounded by people who understood the power of art. My father's gaze shifted back and forth between me and Karen, a flicker of guilt in his eyes as he witnessed the support I was receiving. As the judging began, my stomach twisted in knots. I watched as the judges moved from piece to piece, their thoughtful expressions making my heart race. The anticipation was almost unbearable, but I clung to the hope that I had poured into my work. When they finally announced the winners, my heart thundered in my chest. And the winner of the Best in Show award goes to Lily Martin for her piece, Emergence. I felt the world tilt on its axis as the words sank in. I had won. I stood frozen for a moment, unable to process the announcement. Then, a wave of disbelief washed over me, and I rushed to the stage, the cheers of the crowd ringing in my ears. As I accepted the award, the applause felt like a symphony to my ears. I smiled, my heart racing, as the weight of my struggles began to lift, replaced by a sense of validation. This was what I had fought for, the recognition of my talent and the acknowledgement of my hard work. As I stepped off the stage, my heart still racing, I felt a surge of confidence. But my euphoria was short lived when I turned to find Karen storming out of the room, her expression furious. My heart sank as I watched her leave, knowing that this victory would only fuel her anger. Lily, you did it. Sarah squealed, wrapping me in a tight hug. I'm so proud of you. Thanks. I can't believe it, I replied, the adrenaline still coursing through my veins. But as I turned back to my father, I noticed his conflicted expression. Dad, did you see? I asked, my excitement bubbling over. Yes, I saw, he said, but there was a heaviness in his voice that didn't match the joy I felt. Is everything okay? I pressed, sensing the tension. Karen is upset, he said, glancing around the room as if searching for her. She doesn't handle criticism well. Criticism? Or is it just jealousy? I shot back, my frustration bubbling over. She doesn't care about my art, Dad. She's only concerned about her image. I know, Lily, he replied softly, the weariness in his voice evident. I'm trying to talk to her. I need to figure out how to make her understand. I felt my heart sink. Understand what? That I deserve a chance? That my art matters. I'll talk to her, I promise, he assured me, but the doubt lingered in his eyes. As the crowd began to disperse, I felt the thrill of victory mingling with the familiar sense of dread. I had accomplished something monumental, yet I knew that Karen wouldn't let this go without a fight. That night, back at Sarah's, I tried to bask in the glory of my win, but the specter of my stepmother loomed over me. I couldn't shake the feeling that she would retaliate in some way, and the fear gnawed at me. Are you okay? Sarah asked, noticing my sudden change in mood as we celebrated with a small cake and sparkling juice. I'm just worried about what Karen will do now, I confessed, picking at my slice of cake. I can't help but feel like I'm walking a tightrope. One misstep, and she'll come crashing down on me. You've worked too hard to let her get to you, Sarah said, her voice firm. You have a talent that deserves to be shared. Don't let her take that away from you. I nodded, knowing she was right, but my anxiety lingered like a storm cloud. That night, I tossed and turned, replaying the events of the day in my mind. I had won the competition, but at what cost? The next morning, as I headed back to my home to confront whatever chaos awaited me, I felt a mix of dread and determination. I walked through the front door, and the house felt eerily quiet, as if it were holding its breath. Lily, we need to talk, Karen called from the living room, her voice cold and sharp. I took a deep breath and walked toward her, my heart pounding in my chest. What's up? I asked, trying to keep my tone neutral. I saw you won that little competition of yours, she said, her smile strained. Congratulations, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. What do you mean? I asked, my heart racing as I braced for impact. I mean, it's just one competition. You're not going to be famous overnight, she said, her eyes narrowing. You need to remember your priorities. School comes first, and you need to focus on what matters. I did focus, and that's why I won. I shot back, my anger bubbling to the surface. You wouldn't know anything about that because you've never cared. Don't raise your voice at me, young lady, she snapped, her demeanor turning icy. I've supported your father and this family. It's time you start thinking about what's best for us. I felt a surge of anger, the weight of her condescension suffocating me. This is about me, Karen. You don't get to dictate my life anymore. I do what's best for this family, whether you like it or not, she retorted, her voice rising. In that moment, I saw red. This isn't a family. You've made it clear that I'm just an inconvenience to you. All you care about is controlling everything around you. Enough, Karen shouted, and I flinched at the sound of her voice. You need to remember your place. This isn't just about you. It's about what's good for everyone. Everyone? What about what's good for me? I felt tears prick at my eyes, the frustration of years pouring out of me. But instead of responding, Karen's eyes hardened. You think you're so special just because you won a little contest. Let's see how far that gets you when you fail your classes. I'm not going to fail. I'm working hard, and I'm finally pursuing my dreams. I shouted back, my voice trembling with emotion. Dreams don't pay bills, Lily. You need to wake up, she replied, her tone dismissive. At that moment, I realized I was done. I couldn't keep fighting this battle with her. I took a deep breath, grounding myself. You know what? I'm not going to let you control my life anymore. I'm going to pursue my art, and there's nothing you can do to stop me. Karen's expression darkened, and I felt a shiver of fear run through me. You'll regret this, Lily. You're making a big mistake. Maybe I'm finally making the right one, I said defiantly. As I turned to leave the room, I felt a rush of adrenaline coursing through me. I had finally stood up for myself, and it felt liberating. But as I stepped outside, I couldn't shake the feeling that this confrontation would only escalate the tension between us. That evening, as I retreated back to Sarah's, I felt lighter, yet an underlying current of fear tugged at my heart. I had fought back, but I knew Karen wouldn't take my defiance lightly. As I settled into bed, exhaustion washed over me, but my mind raced. I had won the competition, but I was still trapped in a war with Karen. I felt a resolve growing within me, and I vowed to continue pursuing my art, no matter what she threw my way. But as the days passed, the tension in the house grew thicker. I could sense Karen's anger simmering just beneath the surface, and every encounter felt like walking on eggshells. I was constantly looking over my shoulder, waiting for the other shoe to drop. Then, one fateful afternoon, I received a text from my father. Mark, can you come home? We need to talk. My heart sank as dread washed over me. I could only imagine what he and Karen had cooked up. The anticipation gnawed at my insides, but I knew I had to face it. I couldn't hide anymore. I walked into the house, my pulse quickening as I stepped into the living room. Karen was sitting on the couch, her expression unreadable. My father stood nearby, his face tense. Lily, we need to discuss your future, Mark began, his voice serious. Is this about the competition? I asked, crossing my arms defensively. Yes, but it's more than that, he replied, glancing at Karen. We're worried about the direction you're taking. Worried? Why? Because I want to pursue my dreams. I shot back, frustration bubbling to the surface. You don't understand how important this is to me. Karen leaned forward, her voice icy. You think one win makes you an artist? It doesn't work like that. You need to focus on your studies and get serious about your future. I am serious, I replied, my heart racing. Art is my future, whether you like it or not. My father took a deep breath, looking torn. Lily, we're just trying to help you. It's not about stifling your creativity. It's about ensuring you have a stable future. And what does that mean? Abandoning my passion? Living a life that's not mine. I felt tears prick at my eyes. You're not seeing the real me. You're just projecting your fears. Karen huffed, her voice dripping with sarcasm. Oh, please, don't act like you're the victim here. You're a teenager who thinks she knows everything. That's enough, my father interjected, raising his voice for the first time. This isn't helping, Karen. I could feel the tension crackling in the air, and I knew I had to keep fighting. I'm not going to let you dictate my life anymore. I'm an artist, and I deserve the chance to prove myself. Karen's eyes narrowed, her expression cold. You think this is a game, don't you? Art isn't just fun and games. You need to be realistic. And you need to stop undermining me, I shouted, my voice echoing in the silence. Lily, we're just trying to make sure you're prepared for life, my father said, his tone softening. We love you and want what's best for you. Then support me. I pleaded, my heart aching. Stop siding with her and recognize my talent for once. At that moment, I could see the conflict raging within my father, the strain of being caught between two opposing forces. We just want you to be successful, he replied, his voice wavering. Success is not defined by what you think it is. I cried, tears spilling down my cheeks. It's about pursuing what I love, what makes me feel alive. I won't give that up. Karen's eyes gleamed with triumph as if she had been waiting for this moment. You will regret this, Lily. You're making a mistake. Maybe I'm finally making the right one, I said defiantly, my heart racing. As I turned to leave, I felt the weight of their expectations pressing down on me, but I was determined to break free. I would not be controlled or manipulated any longer. I was an artist, and I would carve my own path, no matter the cost. But as I stepped out of the house, the realization washed over me. This was only the beginning of my fight for independence. I had taken a stand, but the battle was far from over. The tension at home escalated after that confrontation. Every time I walked through the door, I felt like I was stepping into a battlefield, and I wasn't sure if I was ready for the fight. Karen's presence loomed like a dark cloud, always ready to unleash her wrath at the slightest provocation. I focused on my art and the upcoming scholarship applications, pouring every ounce of my energy into creating pieces that reflected my journey and my struggles. Despite the pressure, I felt invigorated. I spent hours painting at Sarah's house, where I could express myself freely without the weight of judgment. Each stroke of the brush felt cathartic, a release of the emotions that had been bottled up for so long. I was developing a series that explored the complexities of identity and resilience, and I felt more like myself with every piece I completed. One evening, as I sat in Sarah's room surrounded by my canvases, she walked in with a determined look on her face. Lily, we need to do something about this situation with Karen. It's not healthy for you to keep dealing with her negativity. I looked up from my easel, wiping paint from my hands. I don't know what to do, Sarah. Every time I think I've made progress, she finds a way to tear me down. It's exhausting. Let's plan a strategy, she suggested. You've got talent and you deserve to showcase it. We need to put you in a position where you can really shine, away from her influence. I nodded, the idea appealing to me. You're right. I can't let her keep dictating my life. I have to take control. Exactly, she said, excitement radiating from her. What if we organize a mini exhibition of your work? Invite some friends, maybe even local artists. Show everyone what you're capable of. The thought sent a thrill of fear and excitement through me. I've never done anything like that before. What if nobody shows up? Who cares? It's about showcasing your talent, she replied. And besides, I'll help you promote it. We can get the word out on social media. You need to start stepping into the spotlight. With that, a plan began to form in my mind. I would showcase my work, not only as a means of validation, but as a declaration of my independence. It was time to reclaim my narrative, to stand tall in the face of Karen's negativity. Over the next few weeks, we worked tirelessly to prepare for the exhibition. I poured my heart into creating a series of pieces that told my story. Each painting represented a chapter of my life: the grief of losing my mother, the struggles with Karen, the blossoming of my identity as an artist. I felt a renewed sense of purpose, as if each brushstroke was an act of rebellion against the constraints that had held me captive for too long. As the date of the exhibition approached, I could feel the nervous energy bubbling within me. I invited friends, family, and local artists, using social media to spread the word. With Sarah's help, we transformed her living room into a vibrant gallery filled with my work, complete with snacks and drinks to create a welcoming atmosphere. On the day of the exhibition, as I stood in front of my pieces, I felt a mix of excitement and fear. The walls were adorned with my art, each canvas telling a piece of my story, a reflection of my journey. I took a deep breath, the smell of paint and the sounds of laughter filling the air, grounding me in a moment. Are you ready for this? Sarah asked, adjusting the snacks on the table. I think so. I just hope people show up, I said, glancing at the door nervously. Trust me, they will. Your work is amazing, and you're going to blow them away, she reassured me. As guests began to trickle in, I felt my heart race. I greeted each person with a smile, their enthusiasm for my art warming my spirit. The atmosphere was electric, filled with conversations and laughter as people admired my pieces, discussing their interpretations and the emotions behind each canvas. Lily, this is incredible, one of my friends exclaimed, standing in front of a piece depicting my struggle with identity, a chaotic swirl of colors and shapes representing my conflicting emotions. You've really captured something special here. Thank you, I replied, feeling the weight of their praise lift me higher. But as the night wore on, I couldn't shake the unease that came with knowing Karen might show up. I had invited my father, hoping he would support me, but I knew Karen might not take it well. Just as I was lost in conversation with a local artist about potential collaborations, I caught a glimpse of my father entering the room, his expression tense. And right behind him was Karen, her demeanor cold and calculating. Lily, my father said, his voice filled with concern. We need to talk. I swallowed hard, my heart sinking as Karen stood beside him, her eyes scanning the room with disdain. You should have told me about this little gathering, she said, her tone dripping with sarcasm. You think you're so special now. Karen, please, my father began, but I couldn't take it anymore. I don't owe you anything, Karen, I said, my voice steady despite the tremor in my hands. This is my night, my art, my achievements. She stepped closer, her eyes narrowing. You think you can just ignore me and do whatever you want? I'm still your stepmother, and you're going to respect that. The guests around us began to whisper, the tension palpable. My heart raced, but I refused to back down. Respect is earned, Karen. You've done nothing but undermine me since you came into my life. I won't let you control me anymore. Enough. Karen spat, her voice rising above the murmurs of the crowd. This isn't the way to handle things, Lily. You're making a fool of yourself. In that moment, I saw the judgment in her eyes, the contempt she held for everything I had worked for. I turned to the crowd, my voice stronger than ever. This is my journey, and I will share it with those who believe in me. I refuse to be silenced by anyone, not even you. The room fell silent, and I could feel the weight of their gazes on us. My father looked torn, caught between his loyalty to Karen and his pride in me. I took a step closer to him, desperation creeping into my voice. Dad, I need you to stand with me. You know how hard I've worked for this. Lily, please, let's just talk this out, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. I don't want to talk, I snapped. I want you to support me. This isn't just about art. It's about my life and my choices. Karen scoffed, crossing her arms. You're being dramatic. You're just a teenager, and you don't know what you're talking about. I felt the anger boil within me, a fire igniting in my chest. I'm not just a teenager, Karen. I'm an artist, and I deserve to be recognized for my work. If you can't see that, then maybe you need to reevaluate what it means to be a part of this family. As the crowd continued to watch, I felt a wave of strength wash over me. I wasn't going to let her intimidate me anymore. I turned to my guests, the warmth of their support fueling my courage. Thank you all for coming tonight. This is my art, and I hope it inspires you to pursue your own passions. A round of applause erupted, and I felt the rush of affirmation. I glanced back at my father, whose expression had softened. Lily, I'm proud of you, he said, his voice filled with sincerity. But before I could respond, Karen huffed in frustration, her face red with anger. I won't tolerate this disrespect, Lily. You need to remember who's providing for you. I'm providing for myself now. I shot back, refusing to back down. I'm done being dependent on you. With that, Karen stormed out of the room, her heels clacking against the floor as she left. The tension in the air began to dissipate, replaced by an atmosphere of camaraderie and support. Wow, Lily, that was intense, Sarah said, beaming at me. You stood your ground. I had to, I replied, my heart still racing. I'm done letting her control me. The rest of the night was a blur of conversations and laughter. I felt the weight of my victory lifting me higher, the support of my friends and community solidifying my resolve. My father stayed close, his pride evident as he mingled with the guests, engaging in discussions about my work. As the night wound down, I felt a sense of fulfillment wash over me. I had taken a stand, shown my worth, and embraced my identity as an artist. But in the back of my mind, I couldn't shake the feeling that Karen would retaliate. When I returned home, the house felt different, charged with the tension of the confrontation, but also infused with a newfound sense of hope. My father approached me, his expression softening. I'm really proud of you, Lily. You were incredible tonight. Thanks, Dad, I replied, feeling the warmth of his support. It felt good to finally stand up for myself. I should have listened to you more. I'm sorry for not seeing what Karen was doing, he admitted, his voice filled with regret. I just want to be supported, I said, my voice steady. I want to pursue my art without feeling like I'm constantly being undermined. I promise to do better, he said, reaching for my hand. We can work together to figure this out. I want you to succeed. As we spoke, I felt a glimmer of hope, a belief that maybe we could mend the rift that had formed between us. But just as I started to relax, I heard the unmistakable sound of Karen's footsteps approaching. Mark, she called out, her voice dripping with anger. We need to talk. I felt my stomach drop as I braced myself for the storm that was about to hit. The tension in the room shifted, and I exchanged a glance with my father, who looked apprehensive. Lily, maybe you should, he began, but I shook my head. No, I'm not running away from her. I've stood up to her once, and I can do it again, I said, determination flooding my veins. Karen entered the living room, her expression dark and menacing. You think this is over, don't you? You've made a fool of yourself tonight, and you'll regret it. I'm not the fool here, Karen, I replied, my voice steady. You are. Her eyes flared with rage. You're a teenager who thinks she knows everything. You'll learn that life isn't just about what you want. You need to face reality. Reality? My reality is that you've made my life a nightmare. I shot back, anger and frustration boiling over. You've belittled my dreams for too long, and I'm done letting you control me. She stepped closer, her face inches from mine. You think you can just walk away from me? You're nothing without this family, and you'll see how far your little rebellion gets you. I'm not nothing, and I won't let you define my worth any longer, I exclaimed, my heart pounding in my chest. My father stepped in between us, his expression stern. Karen, this isn't the way to handle things. You need to stop attacking Lily. Stop enabling her, she retorted, her voice rising. You're making a mistake by supporting her nonsense. No, I'm supporting my daughter, he shouted back, his voice echoing through the house. The air was thick with tension as we faced off, and I could feel the weight of the confrontation hanging in the balance. But in that moment, I felt a rush of strength, knowing I was standing my ground. Lily, you're not going to win this, Karen hissed, her tone menacing. I'll make sure of it. Bring it on, Karen. I'm ready for whatever you throw at me, I replied, my voice steady. As I stared into her eyes, I could feel the fire of determination igniting within me. I wasn't backing down. I would continue to fight for my art, my identity, and my future. I was stronger than she could ever understand, and I wouldn't let her take that away from me. As the confrontation reached its peak, I knew this was only the beginning of my battle for independence. I had taken a stand, but the real test was yet to come. I was ready to embrace the challenges ahead, to prove that my passion for art was more powerful than any obstacle Karen could put in my way. With a newfound sense of purpose, I prepared to face whatever chaos lay ahead. I would rise above the conflict, and no matter the outcome, I would emerge victorious. The aftermath of my confrontation with Karen settled over our household like a thick fog, heavy and suffocating. Each day that passed brought its own set of challenges, as I navigated the turbulence of my home life while also working to build a future for myself. Despite my initial victory, I felt the shadow of Karen's wrath looming larger than ever. I threw myself into my art with renewed vigor, using it as a shield against the storm brewing around me. Each morning, I would wake early, armed with paintbrushes and a palette full of colors that reflected the emotions swirling inside me. My canvases became my sanctuary, places where I could pour my heart out without fear of judgment. I embraced the chaos of my feelings, transforming them into vibrant expressions of resilience and defiance. With Sarah's support, I planned another exhibition, this time, a more significant showcase that would feature my latest works and invite more of the local art community. I wanted to make a statement, not just to my family, but to the world. It was time to show everyone that I was serious about my art and that nothing would hold me back. But as I immersed myself in preparations, the tension at home reached a boiling point. Karen, fueled by anger and jealousy, unleashed her fury in subtle ways, snide remarks, cold shoulders, and attempts to undermine my confidence. She would often pass by my room, peering in with a disdainful expression, as if my art were an affront to her very existence. I could see her disapproval written across her face, but I refused to let it deter me. One evening, I returned home from a long day at the community center, exhausted but filled with a sense of purpose. I had spent hours working on a piece that I was particularly proud of, a representation of my journey from pain to empowerment. As I walked through the front door, the air felt electric, crackling with an intensity that made my skin crawl. Lily, Karen called from the living room, her voice laced with a familiar sharpness. I paused, my heart racing. We need to talk. I took a deep breath and steeled myself before stepping into the room. What is it? I asked, my tone guarded. Your little art show, she said, crossing her arms. Do you really think this is going to change anything? You're still living under my roof, and you need to respect my rules. I felt the anger bubbling inside me, but I fought to remain calm. I'm not asking for your permission, Karen. This is my art, my passion. I deserve to share it. Passion doesn't pay the bills, Lily, she snapped, her eyes cold. You need to be realistic. Art is a hobby for you. You should be focusing on something that will actually benefit your future. My heart raced as I took a step closer. You don't get to decide what's best for me. I'm an artist and I'm proud of it. Proud of what? A few paintings? You think that's enough to build a career on? Karen scoffed, her voice dripping with disdain. I clenched my fists, refusing to let her words cut deeper than they already had. I'm building a future for myself, and you're not going to stand in my way anymore. Building a future? You're just setting yourself up for failure, she retorted, her voice icy. And when that happens, don't expect me to help you pick up the pieces. Maybe I won't need your help, I shot back, my heart pounding. Maybe I'll be just fine without you. The silence hung heavy between us, tension crackling like electricity in the air. I could feel my resolve strengthening, fueled by the memories of all the times she had tried to belittle my dreams. I was tired of being the victim in this twisted game. Lily, you're being unreasonable, Karen said, her voice low. You need to understand that the world doesn't care about your dreams. It's a harsh place, and you need to be prepared for that. And you need to stop acting like you're the only one who knows what's best for me, I exclaimed, the words spilling out before I could catch them. You've never understood what I want or what makes me happy. Because what makes you happy is foolishness, she snapped, her expression turning to anger. You're wasting your time on something that will never amount to anything. In that moment, I felt a surge of defiance rising within me, a flame igniting my spirit. You don't get to dictate my happiness, Karen. I am going to pursue my art, and there's nothing you can do to stop me. With that, I turned on my heel and stormed out of the room, my heart racing. I was done letting her words hold power over me. I had a plan, and I was ready to see it through. The next week flew by in a whirlwind of excitement and preparation. I spent every waking moment working on my exhibition, pouring my heart and soul into my art. Sarah helped me with the logistics, ensuring everything was in place for the big day. I could feel the momentum building, and it invigorated me. As the day of the exhibition approached, I felt a mix of anticipation and anxiety. I had put everything into the showcase, and the thought of people seeing my work filled me with both excitement and fear. Would they appreciate my art? Would Karen show up to sabotage my moment? Finally, the day arrived, and I stood in front of the venue, the weight of the world on my shoulders. The space was bright and welcoming, filled with the vibrant colors of my art. I took a deep breath, soaking in the energy of the room, determined to make a statement. As the guests began to arrive, I felt a rush of nerves. I greeted friends and family, sharing my excitement with them. But as the crowd grew, I couldn't shake the feeling that Karen might appear, ready to tear me down once again. Just as I was getting lost in conversations about my art, I spotted my father entering the room, a familiar look of apprehension on his face. I felt a wave of relief wash over me. At least he was here to support me. But right behind him was Karen, her expression cold and calculating. My heart sank at the sight. "Lily," my father said, approaching me with a smile, "you've done an amazing job with everything." "Thanks, Dad," I replied, forcing a smile despite the knot forming in my stomach. But before I could relax, Karen stepped forward, her gaze sweeping over the crowd with disdain. "This is quite the little gathering, isn't it?" she remarked, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "A real showcase for mediocrity." "Karen," my father warned, but I felt a surge of anger bubbling within me. "Excuse me? Mediocrity." I shot back, my voice steady. "These are my dreams and my hard work on display. You don't get to belittle them." "Lily, you need to be realistic. This isn't going to change your life," she said, crossing her arms defiantly. "It's already changing my life," I said firmly. "You wouldn't understand what this means to me, and that's okay. But I refuse to let you undermine my passion any longer." The tension in the room was palpable as guests began to notice the confrontation. Whispers spread through the crowd, and I could feel the weight of their gazes on us. "Lily, this is embarrassing," Karen hissed, her voice low and threatening. "Embarrassing is how you've treated me since you came into my life," I replied, my heart racing. "I won't let you control me anymore." "Enough," my father shouted, stepping between us. "This isn't the time or place for this. We're here to celebrate Lily's accomplishments." Karen's eyes narrowed, and I could see the fury boiling beneath the surface. "You're making a mistake, Mark. You need to remember who's really in charge here." "Who's in charge?" I asked, incredulous. "Because it sure as hell isn't you, Karen. You've made it clear you only care about controlling everything around you, not about supporting my dreams." With that, I turned away, heart pounding as I faced the crowd, desperate for their support. I took a deep breath, channeling my energy into my art. "Thank you all for being here tonight," I said, my voice steady. "This exhibition is a celebration of passion, resilience, and the power of art to inspire." As I spoke, I felt the crowd's energy shift. They responded with warm applause, their encouragement washing over me like a wave. I glanced at my father, who looked both proud and concerned, and then at Karen, whose face was twisted with fury. "Lily, you're making a fool of yourself," Karen hissed, but I refused to let her words penetrate my resolve. "Maybe I'm finally standing up for myself," I replied, feeling a sense of empowerment surge through me. The rest of the night unfolded in a whirlwind of conversations, laughter, and appreciation for my work. The crowd engaged with my pieces, sharing their interpretations and insights. I felt the weight of my struggles begin to lift, replaced by the joy of validation and support. But amid the celebration, I remained acutely aware of Karen's simmering anger. She had retreated to a corner of the room, her expression dark as she watched me interact with guests. I knew she wouldn't let this go unchallenged. As the evening progressed, I felt a tap on my shoulder. I turned to find a familiar face, a local artist I admired. "Your work is stunning," he said, genuine admiration shining in his eyes. "I'd love to discuss potential collaborations with you." I felt my heart swell with excitement. "Really? I'd love that." Just as I was about to engage in deeper conversation, Karen stormed over, her voice cutting through the air like ice. "This is ridiculous, Lily. You're embarrassing yourself with this little exhibition." The artist raised an eyebrow, surprise evident on his face. Excuse me, but this exhibition is a testament to her talent. Perhaps you should be more supportive. Karen's eyes narrowed as she glared at him. You don't know anything about her potential. This is all just a phase. Enough, I interjected, stepping forward. This is my moment, and I won't let you ruin it, Karen. I've worked too hard to let your negativity bring me down. The tension between us thickened, but I could feel the support of the crowd around me, their presence bolstering my confidence. Karen's face flushed with anger, and I saw the moment she realized she had lost control of the narrative. With a huff, she turned on her heel, storming out of the venue, leaving behind an air of disbelief and tension. I felt a wave of relief wash over me, the victory of standing my ground invigorating. As the night continued, I celebrated my accomplishments, surrounded by friends and artists who believed in me. I knew this was just the beginning of my journey, a step toward reclaiming my identity and passion. But in the back of my mind, I couldn't shake the feeling that this confrontation with Karen was far from over. I had taken a stand, but I knew she wouldn't back down easily. The battle was far from finished, and I would need to remain vigilant as I fought for my place in the world as an artist. As I returned home that night, a sense of unease settled over me. I had made a powerful statement, but I also knew that Karen's wrath would come in waves, each more formidable than the last. I braced myself for whatever challenges lay ahead, determined to remain steadfast in my pursuit of my dreams. This was my art, my journey, and no one would take that away from me. The fight was far from over, and I was ready to face whatever chaos Karen would throw my way. In the days that followed my exhibition, the atmosphere at home was charged with tension. I could sense Karen's fury simmering just beneath the surface, and I knew that she wouldn't let my defiance go unanswered. Every interaction was fraught with unspoken words, the air heavy with the weight of our unacknowledged conflict. I threw myself deeper into my art, channeling my anxiety and fear into each brushstroke. The canvases became my refuge, places where I could escape the turmoil of my home life. But despite my determination to remain focused on my art, I couldn't shake the feeling of dread that clung to me like a shadow. One afternoon, as I was working on a new piece, a self-portrait that encapsulated my journey of resilience and self-discovery, I received a text from my father. Mark, can we talk? I think it's important. My heart sank at the message. I had hoped that after the exhibition, he would finally stand by me against Karen's negativity. Instead, it felt like another impending storm. I glanced at the clock, debating whether I should wait for him to come home or confront him sooner. Hey, I'm going to head home for a bit, I told Sarah, who was sitting on the floor beside me, mixing paint. Are you sure? You don't look too excited about it, she said, concern etched on her face. I need to talk to my dad, I replied, forcing a smile. It's probably nothing, but I just want to get it over with. Okay, but call me if you need to vent, she said, giving me a reassuring smile. I drove home, my thoughts racing. What could my father want to discuss? Had Karen manipulated him into believing I was being unreasonable? My heart pounded as I pulled into the driveway, the familiar feeling of anxiety creeping back in. As I walked through the door, the house felt unnervingly quiet. I made my way to the living room, where my father was sitting at the dining table, his expression serious. Hey, Dad, I said cautiously, taking a seat across from him. Hi, Lily, he replied, his tone grave. I wanted to talk about what happened at the exhibition. Is this about Karen? I asked, bracing myself for the confrontation. Because I want to apologize for standing up for myself. No, it's not just about that, he said, running a hand through his hair. It's about our family and how we communicate. I frowned, confusion settling in. What do you mean? I thought you were finally understanding how she treats me. I do understand, he said quickly, but Karen feels threatened by your art and your success. She's been feeling inadequate since your mother passed, and it's affecting how she interacts with you. Dad, that's not an excuse for her behavior. I extreme frustration building over. I'm not responsible for her feelings. I know, he said, raising his hands in a placating gesture. But I think you both need to find some common ground. Maybe if you sat down and talked. I interrupted, incredulous. You want me to sit down and have a heart to heart with someone who has constantly belittled my dreams? After everything she said to me? He sighed, clearly torn. I just think that if we're going to move forward as a family, we need to address these issues directly. It's not easy for any of us, and I'd like to help facilitate that. I shook my head, feeling my heart race with indignation. I can't just forget how she's treated me. I'm tired of pretending like it's okay. I have a right to stand up for myself. Lily, I'm not saying you should forget or forgive, he said, his voice softening. But avoiding confrontation isn't going to solve anything. I want to help you both find a way to coexist. I felt the anger bubbling within me, battling against the desire to be understood. What about my needs? Why do I always have to be the one to accommodate her? Because she's your stepmother, he replied, his tone firm. She's trying to be a part of your life, and this is a difficult transition for her, too. I was at a loss for words. How could he not see the damage Karen had done? Dad, this isn't just about transitions. This is about her toxicity. I'm not going to sit around and let her manipulate me any longer. He looked pained, and I felt the tension between us. I just want to ensure you both can move forward without harboring resentment. Resentment? You think I'm just being dramatic? I snapped, unable to hold back my frustration. You've seen how she treats me, and you're still trying to justify her behavior. I'm not justifying anything, he said, his voice rising slightly. I'm trying to help you both. But you need to understand that it's complicated. This isn't just about you. At that moment, I felt my world tilt. I couldn't believe my father was choosing to defend Karen. It's always been complicated, Dad, but I'm tired of being the one who has to make sacrifices for her. What about my happiness? I care about your happiness, Lily, he said, his voice softening. I just want to find a solution that works for everyone. Sometimes there isn't a solution, I replied, my voice shaking. Sometimes you just have to stand your ground and say enough is enough. Silence hung in the air, thick with tension. I could see the conflict etched on my father's face, the struggle to balance his loyalty to Karen and his love for me. Let's just take a step back, he said finally, his voice quiet. I don't want to fight. I took a deep breath, trying to rein in my emotions. I don't want to fight either, but I need you to understand that I can't keep letting her dictate my life. I need your support. I'll support you, but you have to be willing to communicate with her, he said, looking down at the table as if searching for the right words. Communicate? After everything she said? I don't even know how to start. I replied, my voice breaking. You both need to meet halfway, he urged. It's going to take time, but I think it's possible. I felt the tears prick at the corners of my eyes. I don't want to compromise. I want to be myself without worrying about what she thinks. I understand, but you can't isolate yourself from her either, he said gently. It's going to be difficult, but you're stronger than you think, and I'll be here to help you through it. I appreciate that, Dad, but I can't promise I'll be able to handle her, I said, my voice thick with emotion. I've been fighting this battle for so long, and I'm exhausted. I know, he replied, his voice sincere. But I'm proud of you for standing up for yourself. Just give it some time. With that, I nodded, feeling a flicker of hope ignite within me. Maybe, just maybe, there was a way to navigate this turbulent terrain without losing myself in the process. The following days felt like a tightrope walk as I tried to balance my passion for art with the turmoil at home. I continued to create, pouring my heart into my work as a way to cope with the tension. Each brushstroke felt like a declaration of my independence, a reminder that I was fighting for my future. But Karen wasn't done with me yet. She seemed to amplify her efforts to undermine my confidence, making snide comments whenever I worked on my art or brought up my plans for the future. It was as if she had taken it as a personal affront that I dared to pursue my dreams. One evening, after a particularly grueling day at the community center, I returned home to find Karen waiting for me in the living room. The atmosphere felt charged, and I instinctively braced myself for another confrontation. Lily, we need to talk, she said, her tone clipped. I felt a wave of apprehension wash over me. About what? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. About your art and your plans, she said, crossing her arms. I've been talking to your father, and he seems to think this is all a good idea. What do you mean? I asked, my heart racing. My art is important to me. I'm pursuing it, and there's nothing you can say to change that. Lily, I'm just trying to look out for you, she replied, her voice low. But you need to understand that there are consequences to your choices. You can't just ignore the reality of your situation. And what reality is that? I shot back, feeling the anger bubbling up again. That I should give up my dreams because they don't fit into your idea of what's acceptable? Exactly, she said, her tone hardening. You need to prioritize your education and your future. Art is a hobby, not a career path. I refuse to believe that, I said, my voice steady. Art is a part of who I am, and I won't let you take that away from me. Karen's expression turned icy, and I could see the tension escalating. You're making a huge mistake, Lily. You think you can just waltz into a career in art without facing the consequences? You're setting yourself up for failure. Maybe it's you who needs to reevaluate your perspective, I replied, the frustration spilling over. You've spent so long controlling everything around you that you can't see the damage it's causing. In that moment, I saw a flicker of vulnerability in her eyes, but it was quickly masked by her anger. You'll regret this. You're just a foolish girl chasing a dream that will lead you nowhere. Maybe you'll be the one to regret it, I said, feeling a surge of defiance. You've underestimated me for far too long, and I won't let you keep doing it. With that, I turned and stormed out of the room, the weight of the confrontation lingering in the air. I knew this battle wasn't over, and Karen would continue to fight back against my newfound independence. In the following weeks, I focused on my art, pouring my emotions into each piece as a way to cope with the turmoil around me. I began to feel more connected to my work than ever, as if it were a lifeline that kept me grounded amidst the chaos. But as much as I tried to ignore the tension at home, it became harder to do so. Karen's behavior grew increasingly erratic, her attempts to undermine my confidence becoming more blatant. She would criticize my work at every opportunity, making it clear that she was determined to bring me down. One evening, after another grueling day of painting, I returned home to find Karen sitting in the living room, her expression stern. I could feel the tension hanging in the air like a storm cloud. Lily, she began, her voice icy. We need to have a serious conversation. I crossed my arms, preparing myself for another round of her disdain. What now? I've spoken to your father about your art, she said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. And I think it's time you face reality. Reality. I replied, my voice rising. You mean your twisted version of reality? I'm not going to let you dictate my life any longer. Don't raise your voice at me, she snapped, her eyes narrowing. You think you can just ignore me and pursue this ridiculous dream? It's time you grow up and take responsibility. I am taking responsibility, I shouted back, anger surging through me. By pursuing my art, I'm taking charge of my life. Karen's laughter was sharp, cruel. Art is not a career, Lily. It's a hobby. You need to focus on something that actually matters. Like what? Following your prescribed path for me. I shot back, frustration bubbling to the surface. I'm not going to live my life according to your rules. As the confrontation escalated, I felt the anger coursing through me, fueling my resolve. I won't let you control me anymore, Karen. I am an artist, and I will pursue my dreams, no matter what you say. You think this is a game? She retorted, her voice rising. You're making a huge mistake, and when it all falls apart, don't come crying to me. I felt a surge of determination. I won't come to you for anything, Karen. You've made it clear that you don't care about my happiness. In that moment, I felt a rush of power, realizing that I was finally taking control of my life. I was done being a pawn in her game, and I wouldn't let her negativity drag me down any longer. With that, I turned and stormed out of the room, my heart racing with adrenaline. I knew this battle wouldn't end here, but I was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. In the days that followed, I poured myself into my art, creating pieces that represented my journey of resilience and self-discovery. I felt more connected to my work than ever before, and I was determined to embrace my identity as an artist. But as much as I tried to focus on my passion, I knew the conflict with Karen was far from over. She had made it clear that she wouldn't back down easily, and I could sense that she was preparing for another round of battle. Then, one fateful afternoon, I received a message from my father. Mark, can we meet? I think it's important. My heart sank at the thought. I had hoped that after everything, he would finally choose to support me fully. I felt a mixture of anxiety and determination as I prepared to meet him. When I arrived at the cafe, I found my father sitting at a table, his expression serious. I took a deep breath, ready to face whatever was waiting for me. Hey, Dad, I said, sitting down across from him. Hi, Lily, he replied, his tone grave. We need to talk about Karen. My stomach twisted at his words. What about her? She's been struggling with your choices, he said, his voice low. She feels threatened by your success, and it's affecting her. I felt my anger rising. I don't care how she feels, Dad. I'm not responsible for her insecurities. I understand, but I think you need to try and find a way to work this out, he urged. I want you both to be able to coexist without this constant conflict. Coexist? After everything she's done to me? I shot back, my frustration boiling over. I can't just ignore the way she treats me. It's not fair. I know it's not fair, he said, his voice softening. But I think it's important for you to try and have a conversation. It could help resolve some of the tension. I shook my head, my heart racing. You don't understand, Dad. I'm tired of trying to accommodate her. I need to focus on my art and my future. He sighed, looking conflicted. I just think that if you can find some common ground, it might help both of you. Common ground? I replied, incredulous. She's the one who has made it clear she doesn't care about my dreams. I can't just sit down and pretend everything is fine. I know it's complicated, he said, running a hand through his hair. But I want to help you both find a way to move forward. I felt the tears prick at the corners of my eyes. I don't want to fight, Dad, but I can't keep being the victim. He nodded, a pained expression crossing his face. I understand. Just promise me you'll think about it. I want what's best for both of you. With that, I left the cafe, my heart heavy with uncertainty. I had taken a stand, but I knew that the battle with Karen was far from over. As I drove home, I felt a surge of determination. I wouldn't back down. I would continue to pursue my art and embrace my identity as an artist, no matter what challenges lay ahead. And as I prepared to face whatever chaos awaited me, I knew that I was ready. This was my journey, and I would not let anyone, especially not Karen, take that away from me. I would rise above the turmoil, and no matter what it took, I would carve out a future that was authentically mine.